Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us here at GIS as we launch our 2017 Annual Crime Statistic and Traffic Report. I think last night our Media Communications Department sent out a briefing document for your perusal in advance. I think you've all been provided with a copy, and we're here to deal with any issues that come from that. Can I introduce the members of the panel here today? The Senior Command Team, Deputy Commissioner Anthony Ennis, in charge of Governance and Strategy, Detective Superintendent Peter Lansdowne from our Criminal Investigations Division portfolio, Superintendent Robert Graham, Superintendent Operations, and Superintendent Brad Ebanks, in charge of our Specialist Operations, which includes our Marine, Air Ops and Firearms Response units. To assist you this morning for any issues that might arise, we have a number of our business leads or our strategic leads in various portfolios of the organisation, and if any issues arise, we can arrange for interviews with those particular strategic leads. And before I start, can I just mention and apologise for the absence of Deputy Commissioner Kurt Walton, in charge of policing and security. He's otherwise dealing with other matters relating to criminal justice portfolio, so couldn't join us this morning, unfortunately. So we're ready to move ahead. We've given you the figures. We've given you a narrative of what has gone on during the year, and effectively we're here to deal with any issues that are of interest to you coming from the report. And the idea is that we would give you the best possible information to assist you in your inquiries in terms of your reporting. So effectively it's really over to yourselves at the moment, and we'll deal with the issues as they arise and get through it.
Who would like to start? Okay, just to also
Brent Fuller from the Compass. Hello, gentlemen. Thanks for coming here.
Good morning.
I just a quick one, Mr. Superintendent Ebanks. Is that a promotion for you? Is that new, or did I just miss that there?
I'm acting.
Acting superintendent.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner, a few things. When we spoke right after you got here, you mentioned that there were some issues with cyber crimes enforcement and policing in the RCIPS. I think this is the first crime report that's even reported those numbers. Where are you all now with tracking these types of crimes, or do you have everything you need now? Is there still some more work to be done around it? Where is RCIPS with cybercrime?
Okay, there's a lot of work to be done, and we're required to build competence, capacity and capability in what is really a growth threat area for policing generally, not just to Cayman Islands. It's a global requirement, and we must, as an organisation and a police service, be able to respond to the growing level of threat that exists across Cayman Islands. And I think the inclusion of the statistics this year, although they're preliminary statistics, indicate the attention we're paying to that particular aspect of crime, which it is. It's cyber-enabled, cyber-dependent, it comes in various different forms, and it presents significant risk to individuals and business on the island. So we in RCIPS are developing our capacity slowly in terms of equipment and personnel. We've strengthened the personnel of our Digi-Forensic unit inside an RCIPS during 2017, and we will strengthen it further in 2018. A key component of our go-forward strategy is working with the communications regulator in terms of building professionalism and building new practices and capability. So that's something we'll be working very hard on in 2018. And we have our strategic business lead with us here if there's anything we need to discuss in more detail.
Well, just, I mean, Commissioner, could you give us maybe this is something to ask after the meeting, but how many officers are we talking about? Are we even talking about police officers? Are these civilians that are doing this? How are we doing this?
At the moment, we have one police officer and one expert civilian dealing with digi-forensics and cyber forensic investigations just at this time. We are looking to build capacity. We're working with the UK National Crime Agency, who've been over on island with us, and we're looking at growth as we go forward during 2018. That will be slow, incremental development.
But that's two more people than you had when you got here. Yes.
Effectively, yes. Yeah.
Good morning, Giovanni
morning,
Eubanks, Cayman 27. I was just looking in the report, and burglary and attempted burglary across the nation has gone up in almost every single district.
Yeah.
What is going to be the approach to dealing with that? I know that in some crimes, even in some of the dangerous crimes, we should say, on the first page, we've seen that it's gone down, which is good, but what is the plan of attack for neighborhoods that are going up, as well as businesses and major crime that is still a problem?
Okay, and a very important issue for our communities. It's a multi-pronged approach. You'll be aware of our increased focus on community policing, getting into our communities, connecting, engaging with our communities to build relationships, build partnerships, and that has yielded some results quite recently, actually. Separately then, you'll be aware that the National Security Council have prioritised burglary at the most recent meeting, and a task force is being established as we speak to deal with that and a number of other serious crime related issues, and that will launch in the coming week or so. There will be a focused and determined effort on burglaries right across the islands. We have had some very good success during 2017, and I think it's worth highlighting that. There were 63 suspects arrested and interviewed during the year, and just looking at our statistics for HMP Northwood, we see that we have 21 persons lodged in custody for burglary-related offences, 15 have been sentenced and 6 on remand. So there's some quite good work going on, but we do appreciate the impact that this type of crime does have on our communities, and that's for both burglary and attempted burglary. We don't treat them any differently.
Giovanni Eubanks again. Just a follow-up, you talk about working with the community and working with the National Security Council. The National Security Council also said they were announcing a gun amnesty. To my understanding, and I stand to be corrected, that falls under the police. Could you give any light as to when the islands can expect that gun amnesty? As the report said, April 2018, and just shy of a half a month left. When can the people expect to see that?
Okay, and again, that's a really significant issue at a government and an NSC level, and indeed for the policing. And we are working through a process now, working with various partners and the church themselves. We have a meeting during the week. We're trying to bring private enterprise, business, and the pastors on board to look at the plan for launch in early to mid-May. So there's a little bit of work to be done on it. It is going to happen, and the idea is to remove firearms from the streets. In the past, there has been success. We'd like to build on that success, and we're trying to build on our success with the communities, working with communities, that they would assist us in identifying where the guns are being held, or if they can be handed into us or through an intermediary.
On that topic as well, can you say, or can you guesstimate, how long will that gun amnesty expect to run for in terms of length, like a month, a year?
Well, we think that 3 months is the period we're looking at the moment, but we will need to speak to our partners during the week, and there is a meeting scheduled. So I know we have Crime Stoppers on board, we have the Chamber of Commerce, I understand we have the Lions Club, and as I said, we're working through with our various pastors, and we'll know more when we're finished the meeting, but the plan is to launch as early in May as we possibly can, but no later than mid-May.
Thank you. I'll give someone else a mic and come back.
Thank you.
Morning, gentlemen. Mario Gray from Radio Cayman. Commissioner Byrne, as it relates to technological advancements in policing, automated license plate trackers, more cameras, is there anything you could give us in that regard as to if there are going to be more of that, or if there are going to be, how much specific cameras are going to be erected in different corners or districts?
We don't have the strategic plan for that at the moment. We're working through the various government departments. We have highlighted issues in respect of cameras and ANPR, so it's more a strategic plan than something that's going to happen in the very near future.
Secondly, I understand that you guys have some police training coming up soon. In terms of how recruitment is done, education-wise, where officers are going to have to start having classroom education to facilitate training, are we going to explore that at any time? Because I understand that anybody could basically go into the police force and train without having that educational component to that. Is that ever going to be something explored in the future?
I suppose we should clarify that. So there is pre-entry requirement to enter the RCIPS, and then there's a 17-week intensive training course in our training and development unit, and that is pass-fail. and not everybody passes that course.
Maybe I should clarify. What I'm
Okay.
saying is there going to be any tertiary requirements, such as a criminal justice degree?
That's not confirmed at the moment. Obviously, the more educated officers we can get, the better. That is our focus. We're looking for the right skill set for the police, and I think I have made the point that the traditional officer with the basic knowledge will no longer be the officer that can bring forward the required services now. I think that matches in what you're effectively saying.
Ralph Lewis, Cayman Times. Good morning.
Good morning,
Thank
sir.
you for inviting us. Appreciate the delivery of this comprehensive report, which will take some time to really go through and really put forward some good questions. Will there be another time when we cannot meet with you and have some of the real questions answered?
I make myself available as best I can through the Media and Communications Department for any issues that arise. Again, I stress that I and the senior command team want to be as open and transparent and accountable to the community as we can. And if someone has a particular issue, certainly I will make myself available, and I know the rest of the command team will make themselves available.
Okay, and secondly, my final question. I remember writing stories years ago when we spoke about living in paradise and basically very low crime. Now we're reporting a lot more incidents on a regular basis, and it is alarming to many of our readers and many of our visitors. Would you say that crime has really increased, or would you say that it's now being reported more often?
Well, we're satisfied that it's certainly been reported more because we're interacting more and we're more connected with communities, and we are building relationships and working hard to build and maintain those relationships, because that's key to the success of a community-based policing service. The islands are still pretty safe. It's a beautiful place. There's a lot of good stuff going on. Yes, there is crime going on. It's a kind of an ecosystem, but we're dealing with that. That's what the police service is for. We work with our partner agencies in customs, immigration, and indeed prison. And we're all working collectively for the shared objective of making this a safe place to live, to work, to visit, retire.
Thank you.
On the subject of traffic, the stats are pretty clear in that there was a large increase in accidents from year to year. There was also a large overall decrease in enforcement from year to year. So more accidents, fewer tickets. Is there a correlation there? And do you plan to fix that? And then I have a second question.
Okay, but I think it's fair to say we have set about fixing the problem. During 2017, we've given you the stats, and you'll see sharp decreases in categories of offences in terms of our detections. And a lot of that had to do was we did not have a fully functioning traffic enforcement unit and roads policing unit during 2017. You'll be aware now that that has been rectified and fully staffed and resourced. We have an acting chief inspector heading that with an inspector, 2 sergeants and 10 police officers. They've been provided with 3 new vehicles in the last 2 weeks, 3 interceptor vehicles, and they're working very hard and assiduously out on the motorways to interdict and prevent abuse by users who are unlicensed and uninsured on the public road, or by criminals who use the roads network for criminal activity. And I have to say that during the first quarter of 2018, there's been marvellous results in terms of the performance of the traffic enforcement unit, and we will see that continue during 2018. We can talk more about that. One of the issues we did have that impacted on speeding, and the numbers are significantly lower than last year, we did not have effective radar detection equipment. That's now been rectified, and new units will be arriving with us very shortly. So that's an important issue for road safety, but we are seeing some very dangerous activities on our roadways, which we report to you, I think, weekly in terms of accidents, driving under the influence, speeding, and other reckless forms of driving, and that's going to be tackled head-on by our roads traffic enforcement unit.
I'm curious about you're getting new radar guns, or you have?
That we're getting in the process. They will arrive shortly.
Additional radar guns.
And they'll go in all the traffic units?
They'll be spread across the islands.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, just we've heard some talk about some changes that lawmakers have suggested making the traffic enforcement, the traffic law, some changes you may want to make. Can you give us a flavor of that? What do you think we need to do to change the law? If you could have your wish in that area.
Well, the key one is this very important issue of dirt bikes, the illegal bikes. I think you'll all be very familiar with that. It's something we have a huge focus on, and not just in the enforcement area, but we do have some restrictions, and the law itself is weak. The police officers that are sent out to tackle this issue do not have the power to seize the motorcycles, and motorcycles that we do in effect take possession of, we cannot destroy them then, which is a problem. We are working very closely through a high-level working group with the Attorney General's office and also with the Director of Vehicle Licensing section, and we do expect to see there will be changes in legislation in the near future.
Can you say generally what that is?
We anticipate that we will have strengthened powers to seize and destroy illegal motorbikes.
Mr. Fuller, can I just add to the commitment around roads policing? As the Commissioner has already alluded to, we've got the full contingent of the roads policing team in place now. And obviously you're looking at the figures for the last year. And if you just were to compare the trajectory that we're on at the moment, for the last quarter of this year, we had it looks like 192 speeding tickets, which is what you've highlighted in terms of the numbers. Whereas we're already in the first quarter of this year with that additional contingent up to 672 speeding tickets, which is a significant increase to where we were in the last quarter of last year. And it's also worth bearing in mind, it was the same really with the driving under the influence. The numbers were around about 78, and again, already at the beginning of this year, we're up to 153. So what we're saying is that's a clear commitment demonstration of the improvement that we are getting from that additional roads policing contingent.
Thanks, Rob. Yes.
And that's the first quarter of this year?
First quarter of this year, yeah.
I think they're included in the information pack that was distributed. Yeah.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
From Cayman News Service. Apologies if this is a repeat question. I just wanted to ask you something about the drug statistics. Can you give us an idea? Watch Jackie switch that on there, so it's not my fault.
We did hear the question, or part
Did
of it
you
at
hear?
least.
I was
Part of
asking
it at
about
least.
the drug stats. What
Yeah.
I'd like to try and get is an idea of I know you're saying that drugs equal 4% of the overall crime statistics, which seems quite low. But can you give us a breakdown on how much of the drug crime is purely small possession and consumption versus trafficking or dealing?
If I've interpreted the question correctly, there are significant seizures being made coming from our neighbouring jurisdiction by illegal canoe. So while we're seizing small amounts in districts and residential communities in our day-to-day activities, there is a significant effort focused on interdicting large consignments of controlled drugs arriving by sea in illegal canoes. And we've had some very good success in that regard.
Yeah, it's quite clear that, yeah, from the stats it's quite a lot. But I'm just trying to get an idea of that when it comes to the actual number of drugs, the breakdown. Oh, right, sorry, I didn't see this on the email. Okay, forget it, 'cause it looks
You
like
have the
I've
returns
got
there. I think we've given the
figures in front of
returns.
me, so I'm going to have another question in a minute, but give me a
Okay.
second.
Thank you.
In the meantime, if I can just jump in one more. The number of cases handled by the MASH unit, I think those are both adult and child
Protection.
safeguarding issues. They've gone way up in the last 3 years. One might look at that and say, wow, that's really a big concern. But I'm led to understand that that's actually good, that those are being reported now. Can you kind of explain that?
Okay, I suppose it's again it's a two-pronged approach. Yes, it's a concern that the numbers are raised significantly, and the numbers have been given to you there. But also it does represent increased reporting and increased confidence in the MASH unit, which was launched March 2017. You're aware that's a multi-agency unit staffed by the relevant authorities, police, DCFS, education and health. So we're all working towards the same objective of protecting children and reducing the incidence of domestic violence. But from what we can see there's increased reporting which relates to increased confidence in the operations of the MASH. We have a more professionalised MASH. The staff are more professionalised. We've had training from our partners in NCA Child Exploitation Unit. They've been here on island with us for almost the last 12 months, working with us, training multi-agency, and they have exerted significant time and effort in terms of professionalising and standardising our training and our approach to child protection and domestic violence. And if there's a specific question on that, I do have Inspector Ashford, our strategic lead, here with us. We can go through that in more detail if required.
Amongst the crime statistics, we also see numbers for crime against police. There doesn't seem to be much of a change, but recently the police was, as you in your words say, attacked, Mr. Commissioner, and 2 brand new cars were damaged. Can you say to the public how effective or were those cars going to be? How put back is the police, as well? How put back is the public purse having to buy 2 new cars? Can you speak to maybe the price of the cars, as well as how long it will take to get new cars?
Okay, so I suppose the first part of that is it's a very serious attack on the community, on government, on police services, that someone would go in and destroy 2 new police cars. It was obviously a targeted criminal act. We did make an arrest yesterday in respect of that. No charges preferred at the moment. The 2 cars are destroyed beyond repair, and the cost of that is in the region of 95,000. That will be dealt with through an insurance policy by the garage owners themselves, and that's in the process of being dealt with. The two replacement cars are on order as we speak. They do have to come from another jurisdiction, and it will take 8 to 10 weeks for the cars to arrive.
Sorry. So you said that this is something being covered by insurance. So this is not something that would correct me if I'm wrong, affect the public purse directly, because an insurance is covering this, correct?
Yes, no impact on the public purse.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
I can qualify that by saying that we've negotiated that with the garage and their insurers. Yeah.
Other questions? Yes?
Just on the traffic, back to the traffic law, was there any discussion, Commissioner, or do you want there to be an increase in traffic fines?
Across the board, I mean, it's been looked at with Director of Licensing at the moment, vehicle licensing. It's one of the issues we are talking about, and the Director is preparing new legislation, draft legislation for approval, at least to go to the Attorney General's chambers for approval by Cabinet, and regulations associated with that. And right across the board, we're looking at increased fines for Road Traffic Act breaches.
But that's the DVDL director that does that, not the police?
Working with the police. We're a stakeholder, a partner. We do have input in that, and our traffic department work very closely with the Director of Licensing to deal with the issues that we would bring to him.
Okay, other questions? Yes, Mario.
Commissioner Ennis, the last time we spoke, you says that Cayman, we're losing our social fabric, which is why that's what you attributed towards the increase in crime. Socially, what are we doing? We've heard everything else that we're doing to fight crime and tackle all these other issues, but as it relates specifically to crime, what are we doing socially? What are some of the conversations you're having with your fellow officers in that regard?
Well, let me just probably first say that we're now being steered again by the National Security Council. And one of the things that, in speaking with the governor, pleased to say that we'll be looking at the social causes of crime, because it's important for us to look at the social causes of crime. We have this underbelly of this social shift that we have seen in the communities. Those of us who have been around here quite some time have seen that, and at least from a resident and from a law enforcement perspective, that is quite concerning, because to me, if it's not tackled, these are the things that are evolving into greater criminality. And unless we address the social causes of crime, I think we'll just keep filling up northward. and Northwood is filled now. So it's not that the police is not doing their part, but how do we address, how we deter persons or young men and young women from a life of crime and people involved in crime, but not just people in our local community, but those who are transient and passing through, because that is how complex it is. It is not just the local grown persons that we are concerned about or we're dealing with, but we know that people are coming within the island and also committing crime. But again, we have to strengthen the fabric of our community. And just coming to work this morning, I was just thinking that 20 years ago, littering, for example, there are signs posted all over the island. The fine for littering is $500. But I don't even think anyone would even needed a sign to tell them that. Littering was something that was just almost unknown. Now you will see people throwing things out of a car. And this might seem like something simple, but it affects the quality of life of the community. It affects the way how we approach certain things in the community. And my concern is that there's a silent majority that is pretty much almost pushing back against the social fabric, the social order of what is things Cayman, so to speak. You see these late night sessions, you see these illegal activities popping up with no respect for the rule of law. What's happening on the 7 Mile Beach, I know it's contentious, but these are the things, studies have shown that if we leave these things unattended, it will escalate into greater things. So how do we deter young people from committing crime? So there's a big, wider discussion that needs to be had, because it's not just about policing. And I even draw a correlation to the traffic. And let's make no mistake, enforcement is only one aspect of it, because you need to raise awareness, you need to educate the public, and also you need to look at road engineering. So again, these are the three-pronged approaches we're taking. Working with our stakeholders to ensure that we raise awareness. I know we have the Purple Ribbon bus that operates during the holiday season, but also getting into the schools, getting the message across. Mothers Against Drunk Drivers in the U.S. have had that kind of impact. So how can we get people, civil society, to raise these issues and bring them to the forefront of the community, to know that these things are unacceptable, but also in terms of road engineering, looking at how we make our roads much better so that it's safer. But enforcement is only one aspect.
Second and final, with the issue of a lack of capacity in the prisons being on your minds, knowing that the space is running out, are you guys possibly looking at the future where we might have to export prisoners? How are we going to handle that issue as it continues to be a growing one with the lack of space in the prisons?
The truth be told, that's an issue for the government, but it is also something that as a law enforcement and as a citizen I'm concerned about, in the sense that, and I'm not telling you something that has not been done by the experts, because we have had an inspection of the prison by the UK Inspectorate, and it had concluded that the prison is not fit for purpose. Okay, and here we are warehousing people and expect them to return to society, and how we're integrating them back into society. So there are a lot of challenges, and I think from where I sit, I think there is an appetite to take on these challenges, and I hope we will, because we still have the opportunity, but with time, opportunity will be lost. So, but I'm confident that I think the right people will make the right decisions. You're welcome.
Gentlemen, can you give us a bit more detail about the cybercrime unit? And as far as I was aware, it was a sort of part of the financial crimes unit, but we now see from the really comprehensive graph that the crimes are getting really diverse and no longer just silly kind of phishing emails, scams or job ads. We're actually seeing breaches of banks and breaches of government departments and websites being compromised. So can you give us a description of how that unit is operating, like the staff that's in there, how they go about their work? Because obviously it's a big area, and do you feel you're going to need to make it much bigger?
Yeah, and I think probably you did miss the earlier part when we spoke to Mr. Fuller there on that. So it's a growth area. It is a crime threat area that we need to look at in Cayman Islands. It has national and global implications. I think everybody realises that the speed of communication, speed of technology has brought about new affordable opportunities for criminals, looking at transnational crimes which are cyber-enabled or cyber-dependent. And for our part in RCIPS, we've recognised that. So the Cyber Investigation Unit is no longer part and parcel of the Financial Crime Unit. It's an expert department in its own right. It requires to grow. We must build capacity, competence and capability there to meet the emerging crime trend and the crime threats that exist. At the moment then, we have one civilian expert dealing with it, leading it at this time, and we have one experienced police officer who is trained in digital forensic examination, which is the key to the investigation of digital crime or cyber-enabled or cyber-dependent crime. So it's an area we'll be looking at to focus more resources, and that's human and financial and ICT during 2018. We do have some assistance from our Foreign Commonwealth Office and from the National Crime Agency in the UK, who are working with us to identify what a digital forensic unit would look like. They have been on island. We have had some conversations. We have had some partnership conversations with the communication regulator here in Cayman Island, and I expect to see some very good and positive developments during 2018 that will help us to address the threat that exists with cybercrime in all of its forms.
Good morning again. I was looking in the report. Overall crime is down by about 31 crimes or so, but serious crime is up. Can you say or can you speculate as to why more serious crimes up as opposed to other crimes? You know, other crimes went down, but serious crime didn't. What is going to be the approach for the police? What are you guys thinking?
Well, serious crime by its very nature gives you the picture that it is serious and that we're taking it as serious crime rather than less serious crime. And it comes under a number of different headings. You'll see the rises and the falls there when you look through the statistics. It's all important to us because it all results in victims of crime. They're the people who are impacted and affected by the crimes. A lot of it is environmental and social. It's up and down depending on who's in prison, who's out of prison, and the opportunities that are presented to criminals as they're moving around the districts, the number of cars they're using, the theft of cars that has taken place, arson has taken place. You'll see the various different categories, the ups and downs, but to us they all represent victims and they all require investigation. That's our focus, trying to bring these to a successful conclusion, also reducing them insofar as we can, that they don't get out of hand.
Any other questions?
Yeah, maybe there's something about community policing Superintendent Graham could speak
Yeah.
about. Yeah, if that's...
Yeah, it's really interesting because all the questions that we've had have all impacted whether we're talking about social fabric change, the underbelly of crime, all these issues around additional road networks, road safety. All of these areas can be addressed through proper, effective community policing. As you're already aware, and I know certainly some of you were invited to the police station to talk about the launch of the community policing, there's been a significant increase in resources that have been moved into community policing. We now have 27 officers. We have beats assigned. The officers have been in those beats now for a number of months, and they're already making a real difference. Now, as we move forward, as officers become more familiar, more accessible to those particular communities, then there will be more reporting. And you know, from a community perspective, if we look at what the role of the community officer is, it's not just about building the relationships, but it's about kind of target hardening and addressing local issues. We've spoken about, you know, youth crime and how that affects the island's security. Community officers are in and out of schools. They're doing various inputs. They continue to be involved in schools with the purpose of working with a whole range of partners to actually divert individuals from crime at an early stage. So they will continue to do that. If we look at issues that may be addressed from a particular beat area, it could involve roads policing. Those community officers then will act as the link with the other agencies to address those roads policing. So what I'm trying to give you is, community policing isn't a panacea, but I am pretty confident from the way we are going and the trajectory that we're moving on that it will have a very positive impact across the island because of the numbers. And I just really want to highlight the other part of community policing, and we spoke about prisons and the numbers of prisoners. Community policing is not just about the reduction of crime and crime prevention, it's all about the enforcement as well. And we've seen very recently some good examples of where community police officers have got involved with some of the other illicit crimes that perhaps have kind of got back to this social fabric that Mr. Ennis is talking about, things like illegal gambling, cockfighting. These are having a massive impact on quality of life issues. And I'm very, very pleased that the community officers are in there and they're being proactive and they're dealing with these issues that have been kind of stagnant for some time. So I just thought it'd be useful to bear that in mind. Community policing at the moment is moving forward steadily, and we're starting to get traction, and hopefully it will continue as we go through the year.
Thank you.
Did you want to?
I just have a final question, actually. I can't remember when it was, but recently we've had an announcement that there's going to be an amnesty. Have you got that plan in place yet? Do we know when, where, and how it's going to happen, and whether there's going to be rewards or whether it's just going to be an old-fashioned bring your gun in and you won't go to jail?
Okay, so I think you missed that part as well,
Sorry.
Andy. So that's no, we didn't speak about it, and it's planning in progress. We're meeting during the week to finalise it. We have a number of partners on board with us, and we're looking to the churches there now, the key influential people in their churches. We would hope to launch it early to mid-May at the latest, run it for a period initially of about 3 months, and we'll work out the finer detail, and we'll have another press release on that in advance of the campaign. Does that give you... Yeah, okay.
Inspector Graham.
Superintendent Graham,
Superintendent Graham. I'm sorry.
It's all right, no problem at all.
It's on TV, don't know. You talking about community policing.
Yes.
There's still communities that are not seen, and I can get personal with this. My community in Bordentown, where I hardly see an officer, and I live by the prison, and the only time I see an officer is transporting someone to and from prison. So what's happening with areas that they're saying they are community officers, but the community just aren't seeing them? What would be that step to get more, maybe more officers, or a better way of actually making the community see these officers?
Yeah. Thanks for that, Giovanni. I do know, and I'm sure the Commissioner won't be remiss of me to suggest that additional resources being considered for that particular, certainly North Side and East End. We do have, as I said, 27 officers. Now, one of the things we are looking to do is to make sure that those officers are there at the key times. And what we're talking about is that they're in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. Now, it is our expectation, and every morning we go through the beats themselves and who we've got on at what time at our morning meetings. I apologise if you've not particularly met your community officer, but I can certainly arrange for that to be done after the meeting. But more importantly, the officers that are there are doing a whole range of activity. They could also be doing some proactive work if we've got crimes, as we're aware, particularly in your area. They could be coming to do a community meeting in the evening, and they could also be doing the visible. But it's our commitment that the officers do spend a significant part of their time visible in the beat on foot patrol. So that's all I can say, Giovanni, about that.
Can I maybe just add to that?
Yeah.
So you have an area commander, an Inspector Prendergast, based in Bordentown. She attends all the community meetings and deals with all the public representatives and key influencers in the community, and she takes these issues back to us. And as the superintendent said, we have a number of people in training at the moment, and there will be additional resources allocated to Bordentown, Northside and East End as soon as they graduate in late May, early June.
Thank you. Thank you for answering that. I wanted to clarify. I think they're the beat officers. I did meet 2 officers in the district. It was more of a case of not of an entire neighborhood not seeing them a lot, and for our neighborhood in the past has usually, from me being young, going straight up, seen police officers, even if it was every weekend, and that just seemed to dip off the scale in a highly residential area. And so I know there was a lot of concern as to just seeing more of a presence. That's a big concern to them. But thank you so much for answering the question.
Can I take this opportunity maybe just to speak a little bit more in a related area? So on the 1st of May we will launch a new re-energised or a completely new system, which is our new website for RCIPS, being spearheaded by Miss Carpenter here from our Media Communications Unit. She has spent the last 12 months putting this together, and from what I've seen, I think it's going to be a very vibrant and interactive site. It will provide our communities with a lot of information in terms of policing activities right across the island, but also in their specific communities. And specifically, it will identify the community police officers allocated to one of the beat areas, of which there are 12 on Grand Cayman and 2 across the islands, so 14 altogether. And we will, as time goes by, start uploading monthly crime statistics, particularly as it relates to burglary and other serious crime, with a form of a pin mapping that members of the community will be able to see, assess and gauge the level of crime in their communities. They will know the identity of their community policing officer assigned to the area, and they will have the capacity to communicate with us via the website. And I think that's a really important and significant development in terms of our commitment to working with communities. And I understand, Jackie, we're ready to go 1st of May. No delays. We're good.
1st of May. May
Okay.
Day.
And just another little bit on that. So uploaded to our site when the site goes live will be our corporate strategy document 2018-2020, which sets out a 3-year corporate strategy plan for how we will be delivering our policing services over that 3-year period. That will translate into a 1-year annual policing plan for 2018, followed by 2019 and 2020 when that time comes. And we will also have a comprehensive annual policing report for 2017, which has been prepared by one of our new offices, which is our Strategic Transformation Project Management Office in RCIPS. We're taking us forward in a new direction, and the focus is on being transparent, accountable, and giving honest feedback to communities and accepting honest feedback from our communities. So we see those as big developments going forward in 2018, ready to launch 1st of May, and we think that's an exciting development in terms of our future strategic direction.
Yeah.
I'm curious what you mean by pin mapping. Is this, I don't know if this is going to be ready by May 1st. Sounds like not. Okay. But
No, we will have a form of pin mapping produced that will tell us where the crimes are being committed on island.
So that means I can go to your map, put my cursor over the mark, and say this crime happened at such and such a time on this street or this.
Not as elaborate as that.
Okay.
It will inform the community. We will pin map, and we will produce that map, and we'll tell you where the crimes have occurred during that particular month. And we think that's an advancement, a development. We may very well have heat maps after that, which I think is what you're referring to, and that will be more interactive. That's as the site develops.
Right, but is like to what? How far down will people be able to? Sorry, how far down will people? I mean, will you be able to see street by street crime, or just district by district, or
district by district at this stage? Yeah.
Sorry, can I just, because obviously it's quite a surprise to us all about how comprehensive this change in the way that you're reporting is. I mean, it's quite startling, to be honest. And now this idea of it's a new dawn, it has to be said. What evidence is there that this kind of transparency from a police department and crew has on crime? Because I think we've spent many years trying to find out information from the police, and it's not always been easy. I mean, Mr. Ennis, no disrespect, he's tried his best and helped us, has been very communicative, but overall it's always been a bit of a struggle. So this is a bit of a whoa, like we're buried in information now. But can you explain to the public why it is better for police to be more transparent? Because we have in the past had a much more restricted access to crime and what's actually going on.
Well, simply, I mean, I think the simple answer to that is it's a community-based policing service, and we are accountable to the people that we serve. I think it's basically as simple as that. We're funded as a public service by government. We're answerable to government and to the Governor's office, and we are accountable. And that's the way we'll be going forward.
Can you just say though talk about the impact it has on crime to be more open as opposed to the opposite, whereas people you say, well, we can't tell you too much because we're fighting crime here, so you can't know, but that whole actually transparency can be much more effective in helping fight crime. If you could just comment on that.
Okay, well certainly that's my view, and I know it's the view of the senior command team, that we must work with our communities in partnership collaboratively if we want to achieve what we all want to achieve, which is safe communities. So I suppose we can't hamper the information. We won't be giving any secrets in terms of our investigations, but we'll be telling you what we're doing in terms of the general picture, how we're going about our business, which I think people are entitled to know. So as much information as we can give freely, we will give, and the sensitive information will obviously be kept sensitive. That's the concept of any modern democratic policing service. Does that answer for you? Yeah.
Okay, I just want to mention that we will be concluding at 11 o'clock, so just for your information. Jebby?
Good morning again. I know you thought y'all were done, but I'm back. I know we always speak a lot in terms of Grand Cayman, but we also notice that overall crime for the sister islands went up. Whilst those numbers seem relatively low to us in Grand Cayman, it is high for the BRAC. Is there a similar approach that you're taking with the BRAC as with Grand Cayman, or is there a different approach that you want to take in tackling crime in the sister islands?
The answer is Cayman BRAC is just as important as Grand Cayman. We're looking at that closely in terms of what's happening on Cayman BRAC. We have an area commander over there, Inspector Tahal, who we're in touch with him on an almost daily basis. We get our crime reports on a daily basis. There is some concern amongst the senior command team as to the level of crime that has been occurring on Cayman BRAC in the last year. And we've started a system of sending one of our chief inspectors or superintendents over on a monthly basis to review and conduct an audit. We have had some of our CID portfolio, and Detective Superintendent Lansdowne can speak to that, going over reviewing crime. And we are going to upskill some of our personnel in scenes of crime examination on Cayman BRAC. We do have to do something about providing new vehicles to them. We're doing that fit for purpose, that they can do what it is that has to be done. And we're in touch with the area commander on that. So in short, Cayman BRAC is as important in terms of policing as Grand Cayman. The resources over there are actually quite significant. An inspector, a sergeant and 8 constables. So there's a good team of officers over there, and we are working with superintendent operations. Maybe some of those personnel will be changing over the coming months to rotate new personnel in. There is a plan to send our traffic enforcement unit over there at regular intervals during the year to do dedicated road traffic enforcement operations, and we'll be working on that. And our CID portfolio will be going over to do dedicated operations over on the island as well. So very much on the radar in terms of what the policing operation should look like in Cayman BRAC.
Final question, just your thoughts. There seems to be a low morale between members of the public and police, some not feeling comfortable, most not feeling comfortable to go to the police. Can you speak to just mending those relationships?
Well, certainly that's what I heard when I arrived some months ago. But more recently, I am getting a different picture. I can't say it's perfect, but Superintendent Graham has outlined it. We are working hard and committed to building those relationships and partnerships in communities right across the islands. And there has been, I think, some very good results in that. And it manifests itself in more confidence in speaking to the police. And you'll be aware, and Superintendent Graham did refer to them, about some recent good detections in terms of gambling in communities. Firearms have been recovered and information has been received in respect of the identity of offenders. This is an indication that community leaders are stepping up and standing up and saying that this type of activity is not acceptable in our communities. And if we give information to the police service and they act, well, then we'll continue to give information. But if we're giving information and there's no follow-up, there's little point to giving information. So certainly I have seen quite a big shift in terms of attitudes. We're not where we'd like to be, but moving in the right direction. Okay.
Okay, we have a few minutes left. Are there any final questions?
I just need to clarify something.
Okay.
On the police car arsons, 8 to 10 weeks to replace them is what you said? Is that?
Yeah, we're working through. The order has been placed, working with our provider, service provider, and it takes that amount of time for build and shipment.
Okay. But 8 to 10 weeks is correct.
I don't have
Give or
control. That's
take.
give or take.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's actually a rush order working through the service provider.
Okay. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
The website, Commissioner Byrne, is it going to be simplified to an app, or is it just going to be strictly a website?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, and Miss Carpenter will be delighted. She has worked very hard. There will be an app following, not on the 1st of May, but following. So there will be access through app, through the RCIPS site, and we're looking forward to that.
Okay, any final question? A few minutes. Wendy, anyone?
I know we're finishing, but can I just say to
Yeah.
the members of the media, there's a great opportunity here now to speak to our strategic business leads who are here from the various departments right across the service. And if there's anything that needs to be discussed or clarified or amplified, we have our key people here that are willing and available to answer any of your questions as we close off. Detective Superintendent Lansdowne, I don't know if there's anything you want to add in terms of the serious crime portfolio.
Just to emphasise how much work RCIPS, my detectives, are putting in for you guys. I'm just conscious that there's sometimes criticism of the police. You need to look at the good work that we are doing and the successes, and the prison is full because of the good work that RCIPS are putting in and putting these criminals in prison. We flex, like the Commissioner was saying, around the major crime. I move resources. We're moving officers out to the BRAC and Little Cayman when they're needed. So we'll move people around. Burglaries is our biggest problem. The biggest change, I think, is going to be working with the communities, the community policing section. That should help, or will help in reducing crime in the areas and disrupting criminality. And obviously we'll investigate and put people in prison as much as we can. But recidivism is a problem for us. People committing crime, going into prison, coming out. There's been surveys on that. The amount of recidivism is far too high. We need a multi-agency approach, and I think the Security Council have recognised that, and we're going to be working with partners to try and change that ongoing, perpetual problem.
Thanks, Peter. I would like to give the opportunity then to Acting Superintendent Ebanks, who leads a very important portfolio of special operations there, dealing with air operations, marine, and our tactical firearms unit, and a significant amount of good work being done there in terms of interdictions, arrests, and support services. And I know he has a strategic lead working with the various government committees on search and rescue and the new Coast Guard model. So maybe if there's any issues arising or anything that Superintendent Ebanks would care to say.
Certainly, thank you, Commissioner. But just looking at the report that came out, firearms and burglaries are our greatest concern. But from 2016, we had 22 incidents or arrests, and 2017, 13, which there's a significant decrease, and we're hoping that is because of people realizing that the RCIPS is taking firearms, unlicensed firearms, seriously. One of the greatest things that we're looking at is border control. We have a small team, but we're making good ground. I think we probably have a record of interceptions with drugs and firearms coming into the country over the last 8 months. We've made 8 arrests, 8 interceptions at sea, and some of those interceptions certainly had guns on board. So those are significant improvements. The Coast Guard, even though we've been talking about it on the radio and the media houses, a lot is being done. The infrastructure is being put in place. We have a commander, Bostock, down from the UK, who is working diligently behind the scenes with various government departments, ourselves over at the Joint Marine Unit. So you're not going to wake up Monday morning and see a 100-foot Coast Guard ship in the harbor, but things are being done. We're looking to recruit local Caymanians into the Coast Guard. We had a meeting with the Training and Development Unit just this week, actually, and we're looking to start our first recruit class in April next year. That's going to be for 12 weeks, and then there's a second recruit class that is going to probably be in August. So it's two recruit classes that will be going forward in order to achieve the objective of getting the right amount of staff for the Coast Guard. So we'll be looking at about 40 officers, and we're hoping that would be sufficient to cover not only Grand Cayman, but the sister islands, as the Commissioner alluded to. They are equally important.
You mean 40 Coast Guard officers?
Yes.
Okay.
I think the point is that the acting superintendent is making is that the indicative strength of the Coast Guard unit will be 40 or thereabouts.
Yes.
Certainly at its initial stages, and how it grows after that will be dependent on the range of activities it subsumes. So I think that's a very good advancement, and a lot of good work being done by government. The Ministry of Immigration and Home Affairs are working diligently on that to get it delivered. There's a significant commitment from National Security Council and Cayman Islands government to deliver on these, and I think they will be delivered certainly at the start of it in 2018.
Sorry for maybe asking this question, but is that Coast Guard actually part of the police?
It will be, yes, it will be a sub-bureau of the RCIPS.
Yes,
at this
right.
stage,
Thanks
it will
for
be under the
clarifying.
direction of the Commissioner of Police.
Right, thanks.
And I think that's for obvious reasons, because we also have to work with air operations, and there's a lot of other work that has to be done. So we've discussed this with the Premier, with government, with the National Security Council and the Ministry of Immigration and Home Affairs, and the agreed approach is it will fall under the direction of Commissioner of Police for RCIPS.
Right, thanks for clarifying.
Can I, just while we're on that subject, and I think it's important to say, this presents a great opportunity for young Caymanians, male and female, to become officers attached to the Coast Guard, people with marine skills. And more generally, can I take this opportunity to appeal to young Caymanians, male and female, to join the RCIPS. We are looking for educated Caymanians to join us in our ranks. It can be a very exciting future. There are so many different strands attached to policing. I would encourage young male and female Caymanians to give it serious consideration as a future career, both in the RCIPS and in the sub-directorate as we build in our Coast Guard model. It certainly does represent a very good career path for young people into the future, just to take that opportunity. Can I also mention another issue that's coming on the radar at the moment, and this is about the appointment of community safety officers to assist us with our community policing programme. Later in the year we will be going to communities, and we will be working with the various community groups that exist to identify key persons in communities, and we'll do it on a small pilot basis initially. We will look to employ people from the community, a very small number, to work as community safety officers, working directly in a community, supporting community beat officers in terms of dealing with all the issues that occur in communities. That can be from noise pollution to disorderly neighbours or unruly neighbours, to abandoned cars, to deal with the issues that are impacting on communities and quality of life. escalate to us, and we will work with the Department of Environment through community policing programme, and we will try and attempt to address all of these issues. It's just to flag it. It's something that is coming on the radar at the moment. It's approved by government, and we will move later in the year to have community safety officers in place. They will have limited powers. They will be employees of RCIPS, and they will effectively act as eyes and ears of communities, working alongside community policing officers to strengthen our engagement and our connectivity to communities. Anything else that we can, Deputy Commissioner Ennis, sorry, just if there's anything that needs to be added there.
Well, I don't think you'll mind me actually, since Cayman Brac was raised, and to reassure the residents of Cayman Brac, because you've raised the issue with Cayman Brac, and we have never yet policed with Cayman Brac, in the periphery. It's 3 islands make up the Cayman Islands. So just to add to what have been said before, we've also been in discussion with government to actually install CCTV on the Brac as well. So that's something hopefully will happen soon. We're pushing forward with that, and it has the support of government, and hopefully it will be implemented. In fact, I think the governor, I can say also in our bi-weekly or bi-monthly meeting with the governor, it was on the agenda. It has been on the agenda, and he also wants to see it implemented as soon as possible.
How much roughly CCTVs may be needed in the Brac, or is it just like maybe half of the island would get now and half of the, how are you guys thinking about this?
Well, I don't think I'll be giving away anything by saying this. They'll be in strategic locations.
Yeah.
So that's where they'll be placed. And also on the issue you raised with your community officer, and it's a good question and a good point you raised. What I would say is that you can also reach out and say, listen, I would like a visit, or get some residents together. And I just say that because of two recent examples where residents have said, okay, we want to meet with our community officer. Although the officer should be going out and meeting you, but you can also request them, and they will be responsive, because that's part of the relationship that we're trying to build. And just probably on a point that Wendy raised about the era of, disclosure of information, and the number of pieces of information being released, which probably, as she said, maybe a bit unusual to some extent. But to me also what that does, it can, the converse is that it can be used against us, because people can say, criticize the police and say, okay, there are more crimes or crimes being reported. But the truth be told is that at the end of the day, it empowers the community. And even in one of the communities that I was speaking of that actually wanted to meet with the police, they have been working alongside the police, okay, doing patrols. And that is just something that is almost phenomenal and encouraging, because we want to take responsibility. So there's this very vocal minority that is pushing against the rule of law and pushing against the authority, but there's also the majority, and that is the important and reassuring thing. The majority of Caymanians and our residents want to see Cayman remain the place it has been. So, call your community officers. We are going to be responsive. We are going to be responsive to you and come out and work alongside you, because policing cannot be done in a vacuum, and I've said that at this table before many times. It has to be a partnership. It has to be the entire community involved. And it's in the same way of addressing some of the other social issues and addressing some of the deterring young people away from crime. So it's a community effort, and I think we'll get there.
Okay, I know we're finishing up there now, but I take it you will have picked up on the increase in firearms seized or recovered during the year, so you're aware of that. I think that's a significant development. And before we finish again, just to say that we have our strategic business leads here for the various departments in RCIPS, and we extend that opportunity for you to be able to speak to those in person if there's any additional information. Other than that, we thank you for your attendance this morning. for joining us as we have released our report. We hope it represents value to you and the community, and we will work assiduously during 2018 to improve our performance and our effectiveness and efficiency across the range of policing services that we deliver. Good morning and thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone who would like to do other, we'll start to arrange those conversations.